Apples and Stones and a prolific recording star. This week in music history, April 28th to May 4th. It's This Week in Music History, April 28th to May 4th.
May 4th.
I got it, May the 4th. May the 4th.
Got it. Yeah.
May 4th. I'm Michael Cast, a.k.a. the Dirty Hippie.
I am Terrence Thomason, host of On the Marquee and On the Marquee Deep
Dive.
Dive. We're doing a deep dive for May the 4th.
For May the 4th. You'll have to guess what it is.
Yeah, you'll never guess.
You have to listen to it. Yeah. Oh, what have you got?
I've got 10 items this week.
Ooh.
I put them in order from most recent is the last one, and the farthest away is the
you're going
first
backwards.
one. I'm going, forwards
Okay.
in time.
Forwards in time.
So my first one is April 29th, 1933. Do you got this one?
No.
So on the 29th, Willie Nelson will be 91 years old.
I was in California
All right.
this time last year, and had I known ahead of time,
Oh, yeah.
I would have gone to the Hollywood Bowl
Yeah.
because they celebrated his
They had a
90th
big
birthday,
90th birthday concert. Yeah.
and Keith Richards was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I would have gone. Okay, Willie.
Yeah.
But 91, and he's still playing.
He's still playing. He's still, actually.
That's what weed will do for you.
Yeah, maybe. So Willie was born in Abbott, Texas. He started as a songwriter first, right? Before he had success of his own in the 60s, early 60s. He moved to Austin in 1972, part of the whole Keep Austin Weird scene. But here's what I didn't know that I found out, which I like doing this because sometimes I find out weird things like this. Willie Nelson's first album came out in 1962. He released 9 studio albums in the 60s. He released 17 in the 70s, 23 in the 80s, 14 in the 90s, 16 in the, what do they call them, the aughts?
The aughts.
15 in the 10s, and so far, 7 in the 20s.
Okay.
Which means coming out May 31st is his 101st studio album.
So I was really impressed while I was doing some research that Bob Dylan had like 33.
Yeah, I think Bob Dylan's, exactly.
He's got more now, but when I was looking at this, I'm like, wow, 33 studio albums.
Yeah.
I'm like, Willie, 100? How, where, when, how?
I was trying to look at people like comparable in age to Willie to see how many they have, and like Dylan's around there. I think if you count the Beatles, McCartney's around like 40. Another guy that's on this list later has about 41, lived 5 years more than Willie Nelson. So it's like 101 in less than 91 years, really. If his first one came out in 62, that's, 60 years?
And you know what's amazing is I was doing some research for my blues show, and it was Blind Willie Johnson.
Right.
And he had been around since the 1930s, and he went up and he settled in Harlem in 72. He only had 4, and they were all recorded after the year 2000.
That's crazy.
and so, some people are really prolific, like Willie. Yeah. And then others,
are not.
It's just amazing.
Crazy Willies.
Crazy Willies. I got something that's 30. So I started from. So you went backwards? No, I'm going April 28th.
I'm going through time. I'm just.
You're going backwards. Oh, so you're going year backwards.
Yeah, by year. Not by date on the calendar.
Here's something that happened 30 years later.
Okay.
A 19-year-old kid named Andrew.
All right.
Loog Oldham.
Okay.
Bought the demos of the Rolling Stones for £90. So back then, that was like $1,500.
Wow.
Right? And signed them to a management deal. Told them to get rid of she said, "You want to be 5 instead of 6?" So they got rid of Ian Stewart. Ian Stewart, the piano player, who still played backstage and played on some studio stuff, became their road manager, and then they signed with Decca a couple months later, and then the rest is... I don't know how many albums they have. I don't think they have anywhere near the number of studio albums.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just know the ones that pop out in my head, right?
Right.
But maybe they do. I mean, there's some like Goat's Head Soup and Get Your Yayas Out and those that's sort of an Aftermath. And I'm like, oh yeah, those are Stones albums.
Right.
But I don't think that they're nearly as prolific as some other artists.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about Willie. Of like, if you're a huge fan of Willie Nelson, like, how do you even like contain all of those? You can't, right? Like, you can't like spend all your time listening to all 101 albums.
Well, now you can't. Now there was something that happened. There's something that happened in my history that I've got. You probably got it.
I
too.
might have it too. Yeah.
Guy named Jobs.
Yeah, something to do with that guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
what else you got?
So next up is a one that I know you have because we've mentioned it. May 4th, 1970. The Kent State shootings. 28 Ohio National Guard open fire. I think it's 11 wounded and 4 dead.
11 wounded.
Yeah. And then a Canadian, Neil Young, writes the song Ohio. CSNY. They recorded it May 21st, so it didn't take long for Young to write it. They record it. Comes out released in June, number 14 on the Billboard charts. And of course, there's similar protests and sparks afterwards, the events. Signs saying they can't kill us all.
No, there was what was it? YouTube, Netflix, or Prime? There was, I can't remember. I was watching a documentary on it just recently, maybe within the last month and a half or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really interesting, and this was the perspective of the students, right? And some of the professors.
Right.
And they were trying to get right?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine being a young National Guards person and being put in that position.
Yeah.
It had to be, I don't know. There must have been some investigations and.
Yeah, I think I saw that there was a whole bunch of stuff in the aftermath and civil lawsuits and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, same thing's kind of happening now with university students.
Yeah, right now, yeah. Protests.
Protests and cops getting involved and whatnot. But we're here about music history.
Yeah. So, I have Ohio on my playlist. I have 2 other songs that were inspired by the events on my playlist.
On your playlist?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to... I guess I'll listen to your playlist.
My playlist is very eclectic this week.
Oh, excellent.
What else you got?
I got... so I usually go the day of the week. So... I'll skip the one that on the 28th, which is like more recent, 2003, and I'll go with 1982. So we always, somehow we think that our time in history is kind of unique. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's crazy people everywhere. And California hears testimony that when Stairway to Heaven is played backwards, experts, in quotation marks, have said that it's a message about devil worship, and I actually have what it's supposed to say.
Okay.
And it's supposed to say, I sing because I live with Satan. The Lord turns me off. There's no escaping it. Here's to my sweet Satan, whose power is Satan. He will give you 666. I live for Satan. If you could get all of that out of the lyrics of Stairway to Heaven, then all the more power to you, man. But
a lot of Satan in that.
Well, it tells me that there are wingnuts in every generation, right?
Yes, that's true.
Conspiracy theorists and wingnuts in every generation.
Nothing really just changes.
1968, one more thing for the 28th of May.
Okay.
1968, Hair opens at the Biltmore Theater.
Oh, really?
Runs till 1972. 1,700 129 performances
At the Biltmore.
at the Biltmore Theater on Broadway.
Hmm.
I had to look up to make sure that the Biltmore
Yeah, which Biltmore?
was on Broadway,
Ah,
and it was.
interesting.
Yeah.
I've got April 28th, 1973. Do you have this one?
Nope.
I thought you might. The Dark Side of the Moon enters the Billboard charts at number 1.
I saw it, but I didn't. I thought, okay.
Starting its 989 weeks on the chart. 14 times platinum, the 4th highest selling album of all time. Wasn't until April 30th, 1988 that it leaves the charts. And when it leaves the charts, A Momentary Lapse of Reason is number 6 on the charts.
I think it's probably one of the best albums that. Yeah, I think so.
It's really good. It's a album. Like it's not a collection of songs, you know? Like it's a work. It's a piece of art.
Yeah. It's is it thematic? I guess that you could call it that, but not really. I think it's well. We'll talk about something else like that. I have a history thing about that from May 2nd in '69. But I've got May 30th, 1960 or 1970. Twigs Linden. He's the road manager for the Allman Brothers.
Okay.
He was acquitted of murder.
Oh.
So, and here's how it happened. He stabbed a club owner.
Okay.
Over a contract.
Okay.
Right? The owner dies. The club owner eventually dies.
All right.
So it wasn't manslaughter, it was murder. And he pleaded for reasons of temporary insanity because he said, if you were on the road with the Allman Brothers, you would be insane too.
All right.
And that was and he was acquitted. There's probably there's probably quite a few more facts.
Yes, there's probably some details that went into the trial to expand on that. Yeah. All right.
But I thought that was hilarious.
That is, yeah.
That's April 30th, 1970.
Wow.
Still, when they were at their height of their.
Yeah. What year is Eat a Peach? Is that like 73?
I can't. I'll have to. I'm not sure. I mean, it wasn't too long, though. 1970, 1971 is when Dwayne Allman passed away in the motorcycle accident. I think 71 or 72. I can't remember. I've got May 2nd, 1969. We're talking about albums, and albums that are pieces of work or operas.
Okay.
The Who, in 1969, they gave a press preview of Tommy.
Oh, really?
At Ronnie Scott's. Oh. And Ronnie Scott's is still they still bring in lots of headliners. Ronnie Scott's. I was like Jeff Beck live at Ronnie Scott's. He has a lot of different musicians come up with him during that show, and it's you can find it on YouTube.
Huh.
Yeah, live at Ronnie Scott's.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was 72, by the way. Eat a Peach. I looked
was it?
Up. Yeah.
Okay.
Where was I? Okay, so my next one up is April 30th, 1977.
Don't have that one.
Led Zeppelin play to 76,229 fans. Breaking their own record.
Was it the
56,800?
Oh, I looked that up. When I saw that, I thought it was a record they broke. The Beatles did 75,000.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's said here. It's stipulated that. Oh, maybe that was their previous high was 56,000, and then.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, in the Pontiac Silverdome. That's the largest attendance at that time for a single artist
rock concert.
Yeah, which now it's way higher.
Oh,
but.
yeah. I mean, all you have to do is look at some of the concerts. Well, is that for a single act or festivals?
I looked it up. I think now the highest for a single act is like 200,000 for a paid show, and then for a free concert for a single act, it's free, but it's 3.5 million people. I think in Rio de Janeiro maybe turned out to see Rod Stewart.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't think it would have been Rod Stewart.
Yeah, Rod Stewart apparently is the largest free crowd.
Good for Rod Stewart.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's for
That's all
me,
you got?
except for the one that you'll probably share a little bit later. What else have you?
All right, so next up in time, a year later, April 30th, 1978, Rock Against Racism. The thing I saw called it a concert, but I think at the time called them carnivals. It was a bunch of artists in England that came out against Enoch Powell's policies against anti-immigration. And then they decided to take a stance, the musicians, because people like Eric Clapton were supporting him. And he made some comments about England being overcrowded and turning into a black colony. So he's got a history of saying some stuff.
Okay, so that's where I heard that name before.
Yeah. But the festivals, the carnivals featured performances by The Clash, Elvis Costello, a bunch of punk acts, X-Ray Specs, Stiff Little Fingers, The Buzzcocks, The Gang of Four.
Mm-hmm.
So, Enoch Powell was part of the, they were less, they weren't hiding it as much back then. It was the Keep England White. Now it's, Keep America Great. Kind of disguising it a little bit, but then it was Keep England White movement.
That's hardly disguised. I thought, with the whole, since 2016, even before that, I'm grateful that things have gone the way they've gone, because then people stand out in the open and say this is what they are, and then we can,
weed them
deal
out.
with them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Address
weed them out.
things.
Address things. There we go.
All right,
I was going to say we could get rid of them, but no, we can, or re-educate. No, we could, deal with things. Address things.
Yes. And then I've got May 2nd, 1980 is the final show of Joy Division. They just perform in a little club, 300 fans in Birmingham, because their lead singer, Ian Curtis, May 18th.
Right.
He listens to Iggy Pop's The Idiot, and then he hangs himself.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then the rest of the band goes on as New Order instead. And then April 28th, 1987.
Oh, okay.
The Art of Excellence, an album by Tony Bennett. By the way, he's the person who I said I think he lived till 96, and he had like 44 studio albums.
Yeah.
So it is the first album released on CD, not vinyl first.
Oh, really? Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
I've seen some of the things where Lady Gaga, just the one actually, where Lady Gaga goes on stage. And Tony at that time he's been suffering from Alzheimer's or, I think it's Alzheimer's. Not sure. Dementia of some sort.
Yeah.
And, but she was touched that he remembered her name. So that's how kind of far gone he was. Yeah. But he knows
the songs.
As soon as the music starts.
Yeah, it's that thing about crazy. The music part of the brain. Yeah. And then this is the one we alluded to. April 28th, 2003. Apple launches the iTunes
Store.
So
the largest music retailer ever.
That's crazy. Now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it changed the landscape. But it was a natural evolution from Napster.
Right.
Right.
It was just
file sharing. It was just the next step, right?
Did you have an MP3 player on an iPod?
Did I? I had a Walkman. I had a Sony Walkman. And it's funny because I was listening to a podcast about inventions called the Patent Podcast. And they were talking about the Sony Walkman and how they really never wanted to come out with a Sony Walkman. But Steve Jobs got a hold of one. And he says, I want to make this smaller and hold more.
Mm.
Did I have an MP3 player? Yeah, I did. Probably in the late 2000 aughts.
Oh,
Is
yeah?
that what they aughts? We decided aughts.
Yeah, aughts. Yeah,
so maybe 2008, 2009.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, and then now it's like my music. It's just, and it's not something, I don't know about you, but for me, it was amazing because I grew up with vinyl.
Right.
And 8-tracks and cassettes. And then digital. And then, but so it was such a slow evolution that every time something came out, it just seemed like it was a natural
it was
thing,
just the
right?
Step,
And here we are where I can stream my whole playlist in my car as I'm driving here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And what's next? Implants.
Maybe, yeah. And then I just have one last one. May 1st, 2023, last year, the death of Canadian Gordon Lightfoot.
Gordon Lightfoot, yeah.
He was 84.
Who influenced more people than I realized. When I looked at that, I thought, oh, you know, he's a Canadian. He's a great Canadian songsmith. But is it history? And I'm like, yeah, why not? But I didn't put it on my stuff.
Yeah, I figured I'd do it since it was the most recent one. That's kind of part of the reason I decided I'd end with the Canadian.
I worked in a jean shop in Wesley and Yonge Street in Toronto. Just a little tiny store. And I did not know who this guy was that came in and bought a bunch of jeans until he handed me his credit card.
It was Gordon Lightfoot?
It was Gordon Lightfoot.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was 15 maybe. But still, at that time, I think he was probably... Was it the Edmund Fitzgerald, maybe? No, I think that was... Yeah, I think he was already sort of past his peak. Certainly not past his prime, but he was still known.
A big figure, yeah.
Yeah. That's it for this week in music history. Usually what we do, and I want to talk about Dickie Betts, right? Because sometimes when we record these, we record them ahead of time, and history happens no matter what, and so we will try and include those things in either the intro or the outro of our podcast. Cool. Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Music History. We recorded it at the Arts North Podcast Studio in Prince George, British Columbia. You ever get a chance to get out here, man, you have to do it. Thanks to my co-host, Terrence Thomason, who's also the host of On the Marquee Deep Dive. If you dig movies, man, you've got to check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Also, our playlists are up and ready to go, as well as a link to the dirtyhippiebc.com. dirtyhippiebc.com. Check it out. There's some cool stuff there. I'm Michael Cast. Thanks for listening. Peace.